Hi everyone, and welcome back to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
And we're on day 2 of our story article for this month, Hidden Figures. And it's all about black women who worked in the US during the time when the US was trying to get people into space. And we found out yesterday that they got these jobs because NACA, the US's kind of space group at the time in the early 1940s, had a problem.
That's right. They had a big problem because they needed mathematicians. They needed people with big brains who were good at math to do a lot of the research and science that they needed to design new airplanes, new rockets, all of that stuff that led up, of course, to sending people to the moon. But since it was World War II, many young men who were good at math and many young men who were in any part of society were off fighting the war. So they couldn't find the scientists and the mathematicians to do the work. So they decided to hire women first, I guess, and then eventually some black women also came along to work at NACA, doing jobs that a few years earlier white men would have been doing. And at a time when black people and women, and black women especially, were facing a lot of difficulty and being treated equal, this was a real challenge. But the women who came along, wow, they really changed things.
Yeah, one of them was Dorothy Vaughan, a teacher, but also a single mother who has to work in a laundry for more money. She has to face racism, but she and the other women will fight it. We learned Dorothy had to work in the West area, away from a lot of the other white people, because she was black. But she became the manager of that area after her white bosses leave because no one is a better replacement. In doing so, she becomes NACA's first black manager, man or woman.
That's right. And then a few years later in the early 1950s, Mary Jackson, another black woman, is hired by NACA. She's a very tough, confident woman, very outspoken, says what she thinks and won't follow these old-fashioned rules that they have there. So she fights racism whenever, wherever, and whenever she sees it. For example, there was a sign in the cafeteria where all the scientists and engineers would eat their lunch, and it separated the cafeteria for white workers over here, colored workers, meaning black people, basically, over here. She took that sign down and said, that makes no sense. We work in the same place, do the same job. Why can't we eat in the same area too? And, you know, she was right.
Yep, and she became an engineer, which was a difficult job for any woman to get, never mind a black woman.
She was right and smart.
Right, and we're going to meet another one of these black women, the so-called hidden figures of the title today, and learn to see what they did as the time went by. Let's read through day 2.
Reading.
Hidden Figures. Another of the brilliant minds to join NACA is Katherine Coleman. Katherine is such an excellent mathematician that she was among the first black students at a university in her native West Virginia. She moved some distance from her family for the job. Like Mary, she refuses to be treated differently because of her race. Her research into plane crashes and her charming personality earn her the respect of many people at NACA. When they join NACA, Dorothy, Mary, and Katherine find themselves in a strange situation. They are working on some of the most advanced scientific problems in the world. However, they are also working in Virginia, a U.S. state where segregation remains legal. As a result, when Katherine is first promoted, her boss fails to give her a pay raise. Meanwhile, when NACA asks Mary to take further training at a white university, she must beg the government to let her enroll. Difficult as these challenges are, the 3 women remain focused on their work, and they help achieve several advances in flight technology.
All right, so the article for today begins by introducing yet another one of these women who came along to not only do great science and research at the NACA and help send people to the moon, but also challenged racism and sexism at the time in America. It says another of the brilliant minds to join NACA. That was the National Aeronautics
Committee or National
Advisory Committee on Aeronautics.
Yes.
Basically the group before NASA, who were the ones we know who went to the moon. So a group of engineers, basically. Another brilliant mind to join NACA is Katherine Coleman, and she's described there as a brilliant mind, definitely. Someone who can do math at a very high level, who can design rockets, who's an expert in aeronautics and engineering, I would say is brilliant. Here we mean brilliant as being very smart, very, very intelligent. It can also be just incredible. That was a brilliant weekend. Or also very bright. The sun is very brilliant early in the morning. Put on your sunglasses. But when we're talking about intelligence, minds, brains, how smart someone is, saying brilliant is saying they're at the top end, they're incredibly smart. They might even be a genius. For example, many music fans consider Yo-Yo Ma to be a brilliant cellist and musician. Yeah, he's very famous, and most people who know music will go, he's really good.
Okay, well, what do we learn about Katherine Coleman? We see Katherine is such an excellent mathematician that she was among the first black students at a university in her native West Virginia. So she's, again, not just one of the first black women, one of the first black people overall to go to this university in West Virginia, which is one of the states in the US.
That's right. And I guess at that time, there were very, very few black students. Maybe just a few had gone to that university before her, but her marks were so good, she got in. And then it also says she moved some distance from her family for the job. Remember, these women were willing to challenge all sorts of stuff. They knew they could do the job, so they would do almost anything it took. If it involved moving hundreds of miles away from your family to take the job, they'll do that too. So that's what she did. She moved a long way, sold her house or moved out of her family's house, got a new place, she traveled, she settled in another area of the country because she wanted to do this work.
Yep. We also see that, like Mary, she refuses to be treated differently because of her race. Okay, so she's saying again, we do the same job, pay me the same money, treat me with the same respect. You know, we're all working towards this goal here, no matter whether we're white or black or whatever.
That's right. Her research into plane crashes and her charming personality earned her the respect of many people at NACA. Yes, no surprise. If she has a brilliant mind, she was also brilliant or amazing, really good at her job. She did important research into plane crashes, into what happens to planes and the people in them when they crash, probably saving many people's lives eventually. And she also has a charming personality. She's just a very good, kind, interesting, likable person. So it earned her a lot of respect from many people at NACA. It was difficult, but she showed she was way better than the job needed, so she got a lot of respect for doing what she did so well. All right, and if you're like me and you're not really a scientist type of person, but someone asks you, hey, what does a scientist do? One of the best answers would be this word, research. I don't know exactly what it means. In fact, it means a lot of different things depending on the science you're talking about, but that is what a lot of scientists, doctors, people like that do. They do research, they do experiments, they do tests, they come up with ways of testing things, proving things, and then that information that they get from the tests, the results that they get from the experiments, that is the research. They learn about it, they study it, they compare it to other research, and then from that they can discover new things and come up with new amazing facts and other things like that. So what are they doing? They're going out into the world, they're designing tests and getting data. All of that is research, doing the work that scientists do all the time on many different topics. For example, the university professor asked her students to help her with her research on dinosaurs. Sure, yeah, be a dinosaur scientist. Do research, dig up bones.
So we talked about Katherine Coleman's research. We also described her as having a charming personality. We call people or things charming if they are appealing. They have qualities, whatever those are, that make people like them. Maybe they're just friendly, they're always smiling, they're positive. Could be the way they look. We could certainly describe a place as charming if it looks very nice, if we're talking about a place. If something is enjoyable, we could say it was charming. It was a charming evening. We all had fun. It was very nice. There was nothing nasty in it at all.
Sure.
Here's an example of how we can talk about a person this way. Not only is the actor on that new show handsome, he's also very charming. So he has a nice personality. He's good at chatting with people and making them feel good about themselves and making them at their ease. So we call him charming.
The kind of person you like right away, even if you just met them a few minutes ago. All right, back to the article. When they join NACA, we read, Dorothy, Mary, and Catherine find themselves in a strange situation. Absolutely. These are black women working in a white man's world and science and all that in America in the 1940s and 50s. This is a very strange and unusual situation. What is a situation? Basically, a situation is kind of what's happening at that time, where it's happening, what's happening. There's an idea here that it's a little unusual, it's a little strange. You could have a fairly normal situation that isn't strange, but basically it's kind of, what's going on around you, what's taking place, what events are occurring at that time, and you're just sort of setting up the action or talking about it in some kind of way. For example, when the boss asked me if I liked his strange new haircut, I found myself in a difficult situation. Yeah, we often use an adjective, a scary situation. You're involved in a car crash or a worrying situation. Your friend doesn't come home for 2 days and you can't find them. A difficult or maybe an embarrassing situation. Your boss says, "What do you think of my new haircut?" And it's pink and it's sticking up in weird ways and it just looks terrible, but it's your boss, so you can't say, "You look stupid." No, you can't say that. So what do you say? Do you lie to your boss? Do you tell the truth? He might be mad. This is a difficult and possibly embarrassing situation.
So what situation are these women in? Well, we see the first part of this. They are working on some of the most advanced scientific problems in the world.
Sure.
So they're right at the top of their kind of career. They're doing new science all the time. This is really exciting, very high level, very intelligent. But,
however, they are also working in Virginia, a U.S. state where segregation remains legal. So there you go. They're scientists working in one of the best situations they could hope for, right? They're doing the top research and all that stuff, but being black women and being in this part of America, sort of the central or southern part of America, where there were still a lot of rules separating black people and white people in normal life, what we call segregation, that was really strange. And yes, segregation is basically when we separate people based on something. In the old days in America, it was based on race. It could also be based on sex. Men over here, women over here. Different rules for men, different rules for women. That kind of thing. Sometimes it's supported by law. Sometimes it's just part of society. Sometimes we do it for good reasons. If you're going to change your clothes at the swimming pool, we still often segregate people in the men's room and the women's room. No one has a problem with that. But in other times when there isn't really a reason for it, of course, and it's because of racism, it is definitely a problem, as it was in certain parts of America back at this time.
Yeah, you'd have places like only black people can go to this restaurant
or sit at this part of the restaurant and not at that part.
Don't use this bus, use this door instead of the nice door, that kind of stuff. And there's kind of more examples of how this affects the women in the story. For example, as a result, when Catherine is first promoted, her boss fails to give her a pay raise. So we just used a phrase here, as a result. And as a result can start a sentence or start a clause that shows the consequence of what we said or wrote before. For example, I woke up late. As a result, I was late for work. It connects two events and shows the consequence, the effect of something that came first. So as a result of this segregation, of this kind of legal racism, as they had back then in some parts of the US, Katherine gets promoted, but no extra money. What?
That doesn't make any sense because usually when you get promoted, you move up in the company to a more important job. You have more responsibilities. You might have to work longer hours. You might be bossing around or be in charge of more people. So you should make more money. That's the way it works 99% of the time. Yeah, if you get promoted or if you get a promotion, which is the noun form, you've basically been moved up in the company organization. For example, did you hear the news? Bruno has been promoted to general manager.
Oh, good on Bruno.
Yeah, he was manager, then he was assistant manager, now he's general manager, and then he'll be director manager of global operations. I don't know, he'll move up in the company.
Good for him.
Yeah.
So this happened to Katherine. She was promoted. You're now a manager. Great. But her boss failed to give her a pay raise. To fail to do something is to not do something. Usually when you should, that's the implication. If you fail, you should have done something or you tried to do something, but you did not succeed. So of course, if a white person had been promoted, pay raise. But here, that doesn't happen. They failed to properly reward her for giving her the extra responsibilities and stuff.
There you go. Katherine, we're going to promote you. You're going to have a new job, a new office. You'll be in charge of all these people. You have to do all this stuff. We're not going to pay you any more money. That is not cool. Meanwhile, when an NACA asks Mary to take further training at a white university, she must beg the government to let her enroll. Again, this is not cool and doesn't make any sense. So at the same time, Katherine's getting this promotion with no extra money. Mary's boss comes and says, hey, you're doing great. We'd like you to help us out with this more complicated thing. You got to go back to school to study. Are you willing to do that? She says, okay, I'll do all that extra homework. I'll continue to do my job here. I'll just go to university. But then the government says, no, you can't go to our university because you're black and you're a woman and we don't let you do that. What's going on here? This doesn't make sense. Never mind, is it just totally wrong? But meanwhile, is something that we learn from this story as telling us these are happening at the same time, probably in another place. So around the same time that Katherine is having this problem with her promotion in another department, or a month later, or around the same time in the story, Mary is having this terrible situation where she's being told to study more, but she can't study more, but she needs to study more, but she's not able to get into the school to study more, and it's all happening at the same time. For example, Jessie was in the kitchen making dinner. Meanwhile, I decided to set the table. So she's doing dinner, I'm over here in the dining room, putting out the knives and forks. This is happening at the same time.
So Mary has to beg the government to enroll. She has to write a letter saying, please, please, please let me enroll, because enroll means to officially join a school or university. You sign up to participate in the classes. You put your name down. You have your name entered on this list of students taking this class by this professor at this time. It basically just means join that school.
Yeah, kind of like register. We often use that word. You enroll in the army as well, right?
Yes.
You join up and give them your ID and all that stuff. You officially become a member. All right, so difficult as these challenges are, and they're difficult, they're also frustrating. Difficult as these challenges are, the three women remain focused on their work, and they help achieve several advances in flight technology. A lot of other people might have said, you know what? I don't need this. I'm an amazing mathematician. I could find 20 different universities who would hire me to teach students. I'd have a nice, simple, comfortable, easy life, good pay, lots of respect from people. I don't need this. But they said, no, I'm not going to quit. I want to do this work. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And I'm going to show them. Good for them.
So that sentence used a particular kind of grammar pattern. Difficult as this is, or difficult as these challenges were, that sentence. And we've put the words in an unusual order here, and that presents a situation, but also says the result of the situation is different from what we might expect. These challenges were difficult, you'd expect the women to struggle or quit. But in fact, they got through it and achieve success. So we start off by showing something that's difficult or hard, and then we show the contrast. Hey, they still carried on. We could do it the other way. We could show something easy, and then we use this pattern as a contrast to show that people found it difficult. Easy as the exam was, Harry still failed. Or hard as the exam was, Harry still got a good grade. It's presenting a contrast however you use it. Okay, so these women just keep going on. They fight the racism. They keep on with the math. They make some great advances. We're going to learn specifically about some of those advances in tomorrow's part of the story. Right now, though, we're going to today's For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So the question is, how hard do you think it was for Katherine, Dorothy, and Mary to earn respect at NACA? What do you think this says about their characters?
Simple answer, too hard.
Yeah.
It was too hard. It was very hard, obviously, but sometimes when you're the new person and, they haven't had someone like you around, things will be a little more difficult, but I mean, geez, they worked there for a long time. They got promotions. They were treated badly. They were asked to do more work because they were doing well, and they were still treated badly. So I'd say it was too hard for them to do it. It was getting, just insulting and crazy. But what does it say about their characters? They're incredibly strong and tough and determined people. As we said, they could have quit. They didn't need to do this job. They were intelligent, smart people. They could have gone to any school and taught students and, had, as I said, an easy life, but they didn't do it. So they're incredibly tough, strong, determined, and really smart too, by the way.
Yeah, can't argue with any of that. Can't really add much. Mike has summed it up extremely well there. So we're going to talk more about these three women and what they achieved tomorrow. So we'll see you then. Bye for now.
Vocabulary Review. Brilliant. Although there were a lot of researchers at the university, none was as brilliant as Dr. Andrews. Research. The scientists' research in medicine resulted in a new cure for a disease. Charming. Peter is always able to make new friends because he is a very charming person. Situation. Janet's situation got worse when she lost her job and could no longer pay her rent. Promote. After all his hard work, Alex finally got promoted to a manager's position. Meanwhile. Ryan was swimming in the sea. Meanwhile, Susan was lying on the beach.
智慧小补帖
Segregation. Enroll.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net